Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Canal and River Trust Safety Conference 2020. I'm Julie Sharman, I'm the Chief Operating Officer, and if you weren't with us for this morning's session, do not worry, because you will be able to watch it back shortly, and we'll post those links around the Trust so that you can do that. So we've got a really interesting session this afternoon. We've got three great presentations, and shortly I'll introduce the first. Then we're moving into a question and answer session, and I'm pleased to say you've certainly got writings. We've got a number of questions already in tune to answer. And if you've got any more, please just keep dropping them into the email address. After that, we'll be running our Safety Award finalist confirmation of the winner, which is terribly exciting. Now, if you're planning to tune back in, make sure you're back on by 2 o'clock so that you don't miss the exciting award winners. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our next presentation, which is Darren Parkinson. Now, Darren's team were the Safety Award winners 2019, and he's going to explain how they have built on the success of the 2019 Safety Awards and made even more improvements for safety within the Mica SCADA team.
Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Darren Parkinson, and I'm the Trust's National Mica SCADA Manager. For the next few minutes, I'm going to be talking about the fantastic piece of work our mechanical and electrical delivery team in the South Wales and Severn region completed to improve safety. I'm then going to go on and explain how we want to take the success of this work, share it, and introduce it across the business. First of all, I would just briefly like to explain about our mechanical and electrical installations at the Trust. As you can see from the photographs, we have a diverse portfolio of mechanical and electrical assets. Our bridges and locks help to connect our canals and allow navigation under, over and around various obstacles such as highways and weirs. Our pumping stations help to move and recirculate water to ensure there is enough for navigation and other demands. Our sluices help us to control and manage our water resource, protecting canals and communities from flood. Many of our water control assets work automatically and unnoticed 24/7, 365 days of the year. One thing that all of our mechanical and electrical assets have in common is that in order to keep them working reliably, they need to be maintained. Our M&E teams work tirelessly throughout the year, undertaking planned preventative maintenance, testing, greasing, replacing worn parts and ensuring our equipment works reliably and safely. They also respond to breakdowns and unfortunately damage caused by users. On some occasions things just simply fail, just like your washing machine or central heating system does at home. Working on mechanical and electrical systems can be inherently hazardous without appropriate training, competence and the correct procedures in place. Our teams, of course, have to carry out their activities on M&E equipment on a daily basis. So it is important that all of these things are in place. As well as the suite of Trust risk assessment procedures, our M&E teams also follow the mandatory Trust M&E safety procedures. This includes processes of how to undertake safe isolation of electrical circuits or mechanical systems and help ensure we are compliant with other relevant health and safety legislation. Following an increase in national health and safety incidents, our Wales and South West M&E team wanted to look at ways to improve and encourage safe working in their area. So they looked at their existing safe systems and concluded that the introduction of an M&E point of work or on-site dynamic risk assessment process would be hugely beneficial. The team wanted to develop a system that encourages a better health and safety culture and gives confidence to all team members, particularly those less experienced, including apprentices and volunteers. Crucially, it had to make team members think about what the task in hand involved, what were the risks, and were they fully prepared. The dynamic risk assessment that the team developed improves the health and well-being of the team. It ensures that team members and the health and safety of others around them, these could be bridge keepers, lock keepers, bankside staff or contractors, even members of the public, are constantly monitored. Keeping written records of each of the online risk assessment check sheets helps to note any common shortfalls and to identify any patterns or long-standing issues which affect health and safety on a specific site. It also encourages us to better manage or avoid those risks completely. The team's effort have not only brought an improvement to health and safety, but they won the 2019 Safety Awards. So how does it work? Well, each M&E team member utilises the revised on-site dynamic check process, and these are signed off prior to commencement of all M&E related working activities on site. This ensures the team members stop and think carefully about the tasks ahead on site every time they attend, and to look for any significant risks which may occur whilst delivering the task. The checks are fully documented and signed off by an M&E supervisor or M&E senior authorised person. This slide shows the point of work assessment. You can see that some of the hazards we review are generic and will be relevant for any work being undertaken at the Trust. Some hazards are more specific to M&E work. Check sheets include a review of the correct PPE to be worn and specific methodology to be used to isolate equipment and work safely. The final part of the point of work assessment includes an assessment where near misses and recommendations can be added. Details of any relevant safety talks, and perhaps most importantly, a section on how things can be improved and done better next time. On the right of the slide, you can see a point of work assessment that has been completed for work being undertaken at Sharpness Docks to an hydraulic ram. You will notice that this has been filled in by hand, something which I will come back to later in the presentation. Building on the work done in our South Wales and West region, we want to roll this out initially to all of our M&E teams to improve the health and safety and well-being of all of our teams nationally, so we have a single process adopted by all. We believe by reintroducing the on-site dynamic risk assessment process, we are setting a good example, especially once on site and to others who work by our side. This will encourage a better health and safety culture consistently across the Trust. In addition to Wales and South West, this has now been implemented in our London and South East team. Trialling since February 2020, we have had excellent feedback from our teams. Two new team members joined us earlier in the year, a first year M&E apprentice and M&E volunteer. Using the point of work assessment, we can ensure a specific and set procedure for identifying potential risks on site. We are able to assist them to learn in a very structured and safe environment, that the best M&E Trust practices laid out become part of their daily working processes and help raise the bar going forwards by teaching them how important health and safety culture is to the Trust. Looking to the future, keeping the point of work information in one place and digitally will improve monitoring and enable us to share best working practices across the Trust. By keeping records of each of the on-site risk assessment check sheets, it will help us to understand any common shortfalls and identify any patterns or long-standing issues which affect health and safety on a specific site, and encourage us to better manage or avoid those risks completely. Essentially, sharing best working practices. The next couple of slides show what we are setting out to undertake across the business, building on the success to date. The aim is to reintroduce a point of work risk assessment process across the business. The sponsors of this piece of work are our Health and Safety National Team and local health and safety advisors. For those of you who have completed the systematic thinking training, the next couple of slides should hopefully be familiar to you. If not, don't worry. The first slide is our aims grid and is just a way in which we can set out and document what we want to do, who will be involved, and how we measure the end result or success. Although there are still questions to answer, you can see we have already developed much of the success criteria. We want to increase health and safety and general well-being of employees who use the new process within 6 months of implementation in a region. There are a number of ways we can monitor this, such as a pulse survey to get feedback. In the short term, all national MICA teams fully using the new process, monitored against set milestones by the end of March 2021. In the medium term, measure 100% compliance in the new process across the trust, including other non-M&E teams. For example, construction teams. We want this to be in place by September 2021. And in the long term, the fulfilment of the original purpose and the reintroduction of point of work risk assessment processes across the business. And to go along with this, a new training package on Trusted. Our planning grid sets out all the things we need to do to ensure this is a success. The knowns and the unknowns, and what we need to do next. You can see there are still lots of questions to be answered, but we have made good progress. So perhaps some questions to pose now. How many teams will benefit directly or indirectly from this new process? How will this be received and bought into by other regional teams? So our next steps will be to set up a Microsoft Teams presentation for our Northern Regional M&E teams and local health and safety reps to present the new process and prepare for a national M&E rollout. We also need to determine where and how completed health and safety risk assessment process forms can be stored, centrally or as an online storage, on Gateway or at the cloud. We need to discuss feasibility of using Trusted for training of the new process and determine requirements for a short explainer video to be communicated. We also need to resolve items noted in the What We Don't Know section. Hardware, software, storage location as mentioned earlier. And we also need to consult with the budget holders and IT and include costs for new IT equipment or modification to existing software or IT equipment. So looking at our success criteria and how this could be monitored, we would like to see an increase in health and safety and general well-being of employees who use the new process within 6 months of implementation. We need to determine a best method for measuring this success. Also, looking at the short-term, medium-term and long-term goals I set out earlier, similarly we need to determine a best method for measuring success in these areas. We'd also like to undertake a cost, time and quality review of this piece of work and assess against the original aims, review how did we work together in rolling this out, what were the successes and what were the challenges we faced. So to summarise, we want all of our M&E teams to start using the revised process again. It encourages our staff and contractors to join us to improve their own health and well-being, leading by example as health and safety ambassadors. Our plan is then the reinstatement of this valuable process of on-site point of work dynamic risk assessments to be reintroduced across the business. The reintroduction fits our core trust values. It's caring about our staff and the environment we work in. It's an open process available to all. It's locally delivered and encouraging for local teams who work together. It's involving many different teams across the business as it affects everyone we come into contact with on site. Trust staff, customers, contractors and the general public. There is no question it fits the excellence core value. It stands on its own feet and is an invaluable tool and process which will improve everyone's health and safety and well-being at the Trust.
Thank you, Darren. And now we're going to hear from Sue Venables, our Organisational Development Specialist, on well-being and how important that is to us, particularly at the moment. Thank you.
We all have a state of well-being. It isn't something you can opt in or out of, it's just who we are as people. We all have it. The word well-being might not cross your mind very often, and when you hear it you may think it doesn't really concern you. You might know it as something different. Maybe you refer to being happy or healthy or having balance in your life. Whatever you call it, it's really important to us at the Trust, because we are a waterways and wellbeing charity, and we also care about your state of well-being. Some of you may rate your well-being as pretty high, or maybe it feels challenged at the moment, and it won't necessarily be challenged because of the current pandemic either. We all have stuff going on in our lives. There are internal and external impacts, both at work and at home, that make us change how we view or experience our well-being. Most of us know though when it's impacted, both positively and negatively, as we all have the capacity to experience prolonged feelings of joy or sadness, contentment or anxiety, good physical health or periods of sickness or disability. We all have the capacity to choose to save or spend our money, and we know when we feel cared for and fully connected to others, and when we feel lonely and isolated. When people walk towards us at the Trust, we commit to maintain and improve their well-being and to make sure we add extra support when times get tough. So how do we see well-being at the Canal and River Trust? We're going to share what we believe matters. Some of the elements may be familiar to you and some not so obvious. You may just not have thought about well-being like this before. There are 4 key areas where we offer support. Physical well-being. Mental well-being. Social well-being. And financial well-being. There's a good reason we focus on your well-being. It's because we know happy, healthy, balanced colleagues feel connected to their work. They are physically and emotionally able to deal with the challenges in and out of work, and they are engaged with the Trust aims as a waterways and wellbeing charity. So how have we supported our people so far on this journey? Your physical well-being and safety in work is paramount, and it starts with working safely together. It's about making sure you have access to your health and safety reps. We will provide you with PPE when you're out and about on the network, and we'll make sure you can do a DSE assessment if you're working from home. There are simple benefits like eye care vouchers. And when times get tough, we'll support you with our occupational health scheme to get you back on track and in work. And for your general physical health, our Health Assured website is open for all colleagues. This is a full lifestyle website with lots of things like 4-week programs to really help you focus on your health. Our Employee Assistance Programme gives you access to telephone support 365 days of the year, and there are additional support methods like online counselling. You will have access to our mental health first aiders here at the Trust, and TrustEd has a wellbeing interactive portal. TrustEd also has a range of pocketbooks on issues like mental health and burnout, and the organisational development team will continue to provide you with opportunities to raise your awareness and learn through virtual courses like Your Wellbeing at the Trust and Understanding the Psychological Impacts of COVID-19. We also want you to stay socially healthy. The Source magazine keeps you connected with all your teammates and everything that's going on at the Trust. Open access to learning has been popular during periods of lockdown, and Microsoft Teams has kept us all connected. Many of you have still taken advantage of your 2 days volunteering with external organisations, and we know that helping others can really boost your mental health. And very soon our networking and mentoring programmes will be open and available to you. We'll continue to provide financial wellbeing through mid-career planning and retirement workshops. Of course, we have our company pension scheme and benefits which you can access through Gateway. TrustEd has a career management and planning portal. And remember, Health Assured, who provide our employee assistance, also offer external support on financial well-being. Things have changed dramatically though since we started our wellbeing journey. It's great to know though that since COVID-19 became a stark reality for us in the UK, that 3/4 of you rated the Trust support of colleague wellbeing as okay, good or very good, with over 80% of you saying the Trust is being as flexible as it can in allowing colleagues to work in a way that suits their current situation. And 81% of you saying you know how to access the support that's available to you. We've still got work to do though. Unsurprisingly, we have seen the largest drop in how connected colleagues feel to other people at work. And we have also seen a drop in the number of colleagues being able to cope with the current work pressures. We must all work hard to understand our lockdown learnings, and it's important that we all continue to build our resilience to help us with the months ahead. In response to the current situation, we've provided a new virtual course on building personal resilience and well-being, where you can learn some new coping strategies for the months ahead. We have a renewed focus on working from home and encouraging teams to talk openly about work pressures and general well-being. We will support you to problem solve together and build new work etiquettes that fit into this new world. Our virtual Trust a Coffee and Tea shop is now live on TrustEd, and here you can book a session to join a fellow member of the Trust for a tea or a coffee. Our new virtual team building exercises will be available in January and February, and there'll be other virtual social spaces to ignite new and old work relationships, where you can find support from people going through similar situations to you, and where you can talk about the stuff that makes you really happy. If you're a people manager, what's your part in this? Well, we want you to create a human response to this human crisis, point your colleagues in the right direction and signpost the right wellbeing support tools for your team. Offer space in your team talks and meetings to speak about all aspects of wellbeing. Offer one-to-one time with your colleagues and have quality conversations that show you care. Check your to-do list and stay in touch with all your team. We all play a part in taking care of our well-being though, so what can each of us do? Stay up to date with communications by logging into your email and looking at things like Source Weekly. Check out Richard's weekly message and any current safety information. Follow guidance in all aspects of making working at home or on the network as safe as possible, and take care of your development and use the learning opportunities we provide for you. Please take care of your physical, mental, financial and social health by accessing the wealth of resources made available to you. We care about your well-being, not only because you are important to the Trust, we know you're important to your family and friends too. Whoever they may be. Stay safe and look after yourselves.
Oh, that was a fantastic, really excellent session from Sue there, and a reminder to us about well-being in these really challenging times at the moment. We're now going to have a presentation from Stuart Gadsby and Dan Wymond. Stuart, the Regional Construction Manager in the East Midlands and the North, and Dan, the Regional Operations Manager for the East Midlands. And these two are going to talk to us about their work on behavioural safety and how that drives our safety performance.
Hi, I'm Stuart Gadsby, Regional Construction Manager, and I'm here representing Direct Services.
And I'm Dan Wymond, Regional Operations Manager, here representing Operations.
We're here to talk to you today about working together to work safely.
Specifically, we're here to talk to you about the importance of speak out, step up and share ideas.
Working together is people coming together, people talking about the work that they've got to do, it's people in teams.
It's not about rules and regulations, it's about how we behave. For me, it's about how we apply trust values around our safety culture.
It's about making sure right from the ground up that everybody looks after each other, looks after themselves, looks after the workspace and make sure that everybody goes home safe at the end of the day. Speak Out is about making sure that where people see hazards and see things that might go wrong, that they have the confidence to speak up and say something, that they have the confidence to report things to their line manager, they have the confidence to speak to their colleagues and tell them about things that they see. The ultimate aim being that we can reduce hazards in the workplace and make it ultimately a safer place to be.
As a leader, my commitment is to listen when people speak out, encourage it.
Try and create that positive environment that people feel like they're being listened to and that any issues that they've raised are being taken serious.
I want people to feel that they can speak out and speak to me about the problems they see at work, so that between us we can work together and make things safer for the future.
Step up for me means taking action, being responsible, and for people to know that when they do that they're going to be supported.
It's about taking responsibility for safety, not just for you, but for the people you work with as well.
My commitment is not to walk past things, not to just accept things because that's the way they've always been.
I'm committed to making the environment I'm working in and volunteering in as safe as I can make it.
I'll step up by ensuring people know that I'm taking safety seriously.
First and foremost, going to lead by example, so as the team can see the right way it's done.
That means listening to people who raise concerns. It means taking action and making things, putting things right, making things safe, and it means rethinking ideas on how we tackle some of the issues we have to deal with.
So we want people to share ideas. We want people to tell us what they think.
Particularly volunteers have a tremendous amount of information and work experience from different areas of work, and that can be very, very useful to the Trust.
If people want to share, if people are coming to me and they're trying to share ideas with me, I'm going to listen to them. That's absolutely what my obligation is, and to understand what the idea is and try and see how it might benefit us.
I encourage my team to share ideas. I encourage my team to think about ways in which we can work better or work more safely. What I find is that when we implement those ideas, it gives people the confidence to bring more in the future, and so it makes my job a lot easier as a result.
I will listen, I'll take action where needed, and I'll champion any ideas that make us all safer and able to go home at the end of the day.
Speak out. What does that mean for us? Speaking out is about having the confidence to challenge when something isn't safe, no matter who that person may be. It's not just safety is not just the responsibility of your line manager. We also have to accept when somebody challenges our own behaviours and react positively to that. And also stop and think about the tasks that we're doing. Is it safe? Put your head up, have a look round every now and again when we're working. Are the methods we're using safe? If not, stop. Let's have a discussion and let's think about what we're doing. It's about having the confidence to do that. It's about reporting all accidents and incidences and near misses using the processes we have. Everyone needs to have the confidence to speak out.
So, step up. Stepping up is about you taking responsibility for your safety and the safety of those around you. It's about choosing the safe ways of working, whatever's happening, not taking shortcuts. It's about understanding that if you break the rules, that sets an example to other people. It's about challenging the behaviours of others, as we've already talked about, and it's about putting safety at the heart of everything we do. So please make sure that you follow the correct procedures, don't take shortcuts, make sure that you're correctly trained and the people who are assigned to tasks have the proper training. Make sure that the tools that are being used are suitable for the job and are in good order, making sure that people are wearing the correct PPE. Make sure that each task has been safety checked and that the processes and people and the environment around it have the proper controls put in place. Make sure you do all you can to prevent anybody from being harmed, and making sure that you are accountable for your actions and look out for those around you.
So, sharing ideas, what does that mean for us? So, sharing ideas is about encouraging people to take the time to share their learnings from both good and bad practices. What is it that we've done well and how can we spread that across the Trust? And what is it that we've done badly that we can learn from? It's about encouraging people to get involved when planning works. Can something be done safely? Has someone had experience in another field that we can introduce and utilise their expertise better? All in all, we need to encourage the sharing of ideas far more across the Trust.
So, how can you take action by stepping up? When you see or hear the word step up in future, take time to stop what you're doing. Check that you are safe and that you're doing things safely. Check the person to your left. Check that they're operating safely and that the environment around them is safe. Check that they know what they're doing and that they're conscious of the environment around them. Do you need to speak out? Do you need to step up and take responsibility? Do you need to share some ideas about your experience or a better way of doing things? By taking action, you can take a positive intervention that could save somebody from being hurt. Now make sure that you report that on Log Incident.
So, how does this all tie into what you do in the real world every day? Well, you'll all know that we've got Log Incident to use, and actually the three things that we've talked about, speaking out, stepping up and sharing ideas, can all be done effectively through Log Incident.
Yeah, so there are a number of ways of capturing safety information, raising it through your safety reps, raising it to your line manager, but actually we all have access to Log Incident. Log Incident allows us to raise positive interventions when we've challenged behaviours or we've seen good practice, like we spoke about earlier. You can highlight near misses and raise them to allow that to be shared, and also when accidents have happened.
Yeah, and the accident thing, we can tie accident investigations that we'd encourage everybody to take part in. They can input their bits onto Log Incident, and that way the lessons learned from when things have gone wrong can be shared amongst everybody, and that information can be used as part of team talks and in future used as part of safety briefings.
And one of the most critical parts of Log Incidents is it actually gives the person who's raised the message, it allows feedback to be given directly to them, so it's a full circle.
Yeah, that's true, and it can be used as a performance measurement, not in terms of arbitrary numbers of figures on Log Incident, but we can see trends in terms of how many positive interventions we've made. So if you go back to the step up scenario, where when you hear the word step up, it prompts you to evaluate your surroundings and look at what you can do to make it safer, and hopefully identify hazards and put them right and make them become positive interventions. Effectively, what we're looking to see is the more positive interventions we can make, the fewer hazards and ultimately the fewer accidents and incidents, and definitely the fewer injuries. And ultimately it's about making sure everybody goes home safe at the end of the day.
What we're trying to achieve is being proactive about safety. You can see from these two reports that traditionally we react to safety, and it's usually when things have gone wrong. You can see on this chart here that the number of incidents far outweighs the number of hazards identified and the number of positive interventions. By following the guidance with Step Up, we can turn that around and greatly increase the number of positive interventions, and therefore make the workplace a much safer place to be. So, no safety conference would be complete without the inclusion of a cheesy video, and in this case I've roped in a couple of the Canal and River Trust finest to act out their parts. I'm sure the Oscars will be knocking on their door shortly. We're going to demonstrate the practice of Step Up and how it should work. First, what you'll see is an operative getting a reminder message from their supervisor, reminding them to step up and take responsibility for safety. You'll see that the message is just a simple prompt reminder saying step up. Then you'll see them identifying some unsafe practice by one of their colleagues and having the courage to speak out and say something and doing that in the right way. You'll see that that's taken positively by the person in receipt of it, and you'll see that the action is a positive one and can be recorded on Log Incident as a positive intervention, preventing injury to one of our colleagues.
Hello there. Well, we're back live now for Q&A. Thank you for Dan and Stuart and that really good video introducing the work around Speak Up and the rest of the slogan, which I've momentarily forgotten because it's not in front of me. Forgive me. Remember what they said, not what I said. We've got the reason I'm distracted is because you've been brilliant at sending in lots of questions during the break. So this format of meeting really works, I think, in terms of getting questions. If you have more questions, don't be too slow at sending them in because there's a slight lag between them coming in and them getting to us. So let me encourage you to send the questions in as soon as they alight in your mind to ask. So we're going to take a couple of questions first that came in advance, and we'll take them together because they both concern driving. So the first question is around tiredness and fatigue and its contribution to accidents. You know, why are colleagues being asked to drive long distances? And the second question is around if you have an accident, Oh, where's the Simon? Just take that one. I've lost the second one off the screen. So there was a second question there, but Simon, ask the first one about tiredness and fatigue, and we'll come back to the second one. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the second question was along similar lines about direct services teams having to travel for work and potentially long distances and therefore being tired. So, I mean, clearly we are very concerned about the well-being of our colleagues and the safety of them both driving and whilst on site and being fit to do both. This is now that we're operating a national work programme, a nationally prioritised programme. It's always a challenge in making sure we put the right teams on the right jobs. But clearly, from both a safety and an economic point of view, getting a team to work on a job that's nearest to their home or their home base is got to be the starting point and is the approach that's taken. However, it's not always the case that the work is within half an hour or so of a journey, and it can of their homes, and it can mean driving for more than an hour, perhaps. And so we've talked to the teams and suggested things like starting earlier in the day, finishing earlier in the afternoon to avoid long traffic queues. Birmingham, we know, is an issue, so that gives a better chance to avoid time sat in traffic, to take breaks, to use part of the working day with agreement with the line manager to enable the journey, and again, to take breaks, and if appropriate, to take breaks on the journey to and from the work. But if anybody feels that they are doing excessive journeys, I would urge them to raise it with their line manager to make sure that these issues are taken into account, and if adjustments need to be made, that we make them.
Thank you, Simon. Hopefully that's answered the question. Again, we are doing our best doing this live, so if there's things you want to follow up, please don't hesitate to get back in touch and talk to your line manager, but also send an email in, and we'll try and answer things in writing if there's more to say. There's a couple of questions now around working from home. The first one is, if you have an accident while working from home, is this classed as a workplace incident? And second, how does insurance work for accidents at home? Does the trust insure us, or do we need to tell our home insurance? So good, clear questions. Julia, are you going to try and answer those? Or
yes,
am I?
thanks.
I can't remember.
No, I think I'm picking those on up. Thanks, Richard. It's a very good question, actually, with more and more of us working from home, and it's useful to clarify for people. I think the most important thing about whether an incident's a workplace incident is whether you were doing any work at the time. So, for example, if you had a setup that you'd set up at home and you tripped over a cable, or you did something that was related to that activity of working, then that would be a workplace incident. If it was a situation like you spilled a cup of coffee somewhere and that wasn't work, then that wouldn't be a workplace incident. So the association with the activity being related to work. And in terms of insurance, again, as more of us work from home now, the Trust's employer liability insurance does cover you for home working, but we do require people to undertake their home working risk assessments. Now, there's still a few outstanding, so I'd encourage any colleagues working from home to carry out those working at home risk assessments. And we do recommend that you contact your home insurer. There should not be an additional charge, particularly for the types of work that you're likely to be doing at home for the Trust, which is mainly computer-based office work. So Richard, that sort of covers those 2 points on working from home. Are you able to hand back?
Julia, I don't know what's happened to the sound, but I can't hear you.
Well, hopefully everyone else
Mark,
can.
do you have a technical problem?
I can hear Julie, Richard, so it could be a local problem.
I'll carry on, shall I? And I'll pick up the next question, which was the loan working system. Will it be the new loan working system that we've been researching and looking into over the last few months? We've now found a provider that we're very happy with, and we're going to start rolling out after Christmas, I think the timeline is. Now, this is to replace a very aged crisis system that we've had in the Trust for many years and isn't quite fit for the purpose any longer. But also I'm conscious that other people have used many other systems, which we want to embrace as well as part of flexibility and new technology. Ultimately, the most important thing with a loan working system is that people know where you are and actually can trace your location if something goes wrong. So initially, what we're going to do is roll the new system out, which is an app-based system, to our existing crisis users, and it will then be available for take-up with other teams. We'll be updating the standard, and we'll be offering people, depending on the levels of risk and the range of work and the frequency of need, a number of options, including the app, which will be one of the ultimate systems. But other people are very comfortable using buddy systems and other techniques, which, as long as they remember to use them, are perfectly serviceable as well. So the app is available, and we're going to roll it out slowly and see how well received it is with those users. And so there's no limitations, but there will be other options. So are you back with us, Richard? Can you hear me now?
I am, Julie. So we spoke too soon about the technology, but yes, I am back. So thank you for the true professional carrying on regardless. The next question is around the really important subject of mental health. The question is, we lose many days from people being off with mental health issues. Should we be undertaking mental health risk assessments in the same way we assess physical risk? And that is a really good question, and again, one that's very difficult to answer in just a few minutes. But we are obviously very focused on supporting people with their mental health, particularly the challenges we faced this year as more of us are working more remotely from colleagues. And really, as we've said, and as you heard a little bit in the wellbeing presentation, the film that we showed earlier, we have to support each other. Line managers have a really important role here in helping colleagues to assess the risks that they might be facing. We do have in the framework we work within, the HSE's management standards, key areas around support, relationships, and how we need to be active in supporting colleagues, both at a physical and psychological level, recognising that it's the whole person who we need to support. We, of course, have our mental health first aiders who are there to support. And I think this whole subject of risk assessment, I guess it isn't something we'd want to see as a separate risk assessment, but it is something we need to make sure we factor into the risk assessments that we make, see them as a comprehensive exercise. Clearly, it's difficult to be explicit sometimes about mental health issues in the same way that we can tangibly look and see and feel some of the physical issues very immediately. But I think as we mature and evolve as an organisation, our ability to recognise situations that are going to create mental health issues is going to be something that we do need to grow to do as part of our way of just operating day to day. And it's not something we can press a button and make happen. And I think maybe things like explicit mental health conversations, explicit recognition of that factor in the way that people are working, particularly as we go through change and disruption of the sort we faced this year, is really important. So it's sort of an amber light for a mental health risk assessment, in that we should absolutely make sure we're thinking about mental health. I'm not sure that setting up a separate process would be the right way to do it, but it is something we have to think about very actively in assessing all of the risks that we face in the widest possible sense, not just a situation, but in the ongoing way that we're all having to work with one another. There is support on Trusted, of course. I point you towards that, particularly some of the issues around COVID. I've heard very good things about some of the virtual workshops, psychological impacts of COVID, personal resilience and well-being. So please do look to those, not just for yourself, but because you can support your team if you're a manager, or your colleagues. And we'll continue to keep these things under review, keep the conversation going about how we can support one another in this really important issue, this really important area of mental health. So the next question is going to be one I'm going to ask Simon to comment on, which is another really important subject about how we can make the best use of the Trust's network of health and safety reps. It's been brilliant to see the growth in the numbers of health and safety reps. Thank you ever so much, all those who over the last few years have stepped forward to take on this role. It's a really important way of supporting colleagues and raising our focus, intensifying our focus on health and safety. But the view of the questioner, only a small number are active in the region where they're based. How can we encourage health and safety reps to be more proactive?
Excuse me. Thank you, Richard. Excuse me. Yeah, health and safety representatives are absolutely vital in connecting our people and driving our safety culture forward. And I know that the safety team meet with them on a monthly basis. They're also involved in the regional safety committees and the national committee that Julie and I sit on. But we do understand that the responsibilities are quite onerous, can be daunting, and do involve a lot of time on top of the day job. And therefore, it is important that we provide support and the time and capacity for the health and safety reps to perform their duties. The Culture Steering Group are later this week going to meet to look at how we can make the role clearer and more rewarding for those who volunteer. And therefore, they're looking for people to work as a group of reps to put together an engagement strategy. And you're encouraged to email the team at health.safety@canalrivertrust.org.uk if you'd like to take part. I think also it's really important that the representatives support each other and not rely necessarily on the meetings to raise issues. But if you feel you have challenges, talk to somebody nearby, talk to somebody you know, and share the challenges, because a problem shared is a problem solved. So I think we all have a duty to support the health and safety reps. They play an absolutely fundamental part in our safety culture. And I would encourage everyone involved in this call, if you get a chance, speak to your safety rep and give them a boost. Thank you.
Great message, Simon. Thank you. Really good question, the next one, because it's come from someone in one of our support functions. And the point made by the questioner is that support functions have an important role to play around health and safety because it is about culture, and that's something that affects us all and that we all contribute to. So the question is, how can finance and others support a better safety culture within the trust? So first thing I just want to say is to acknowledge how useful it is to have that question. The fact that the finance team are seeing themselves as having a role within health and safety is in a way the first important step. So it isn't just for the guys on the bank, the guys doing construction work, the guys doing operational things, it is for all of us. So great that the finance team is so keen to embrace that. And the message we just heard from Stuart and Dan, and I'll get it right this time, speak out, step up, and share ideas, is deliberately designed to be comprehensive, to be able to encompass the work in all the functions across the trust. So I think it's about everyone in the support teams, in all teams across the trust, being active, taking the steps themselves, adapting whatever the broad trust messages are to be relevant to your team and to take the initiative around that. So we're keen for that to happen. Try to make it as inclusive as possible when we put out messages, and let's make sure that all the managers in all functions, particularly the support areas, are able to take ownership of and to deliver the safety messages. So keeping that focus in all parts of the trust will, I think, be the most useful thing we can do. Next question, I'm going to turn to you, Julie. We've suffered about 500 incidents at the trust to date of all varieties, and we've had around 900 positive interventions. And the premise in the question is that should we be having more positive interventions, because that's a very important lead indicator of the possibility of incidents. So having more positive interventions would be a sign that we are getting some of these cultural issues right and are seeing the possibility of incidents before they happen, so that then we can drive that improvement. Julie, what can we do to encourage people to make more positive interventions, or at least to record and report more positive interventions?
My apologies, muted. Schoolgirl error. Yes, it's a really good question, this, because we all have heard, I'm sure, of the safety triangle, where it's a bit like an iceberg. You only see the incident above the water, and then all of the potential problems lying sort of out of sight. So the reason why we record near misses and positive interventions is in order to build up a better understanding of where our systems of work might be not complete, maybe undermining the ability to work safely at all times. And so it is important that we record near misses and positive interventions, because it's a reconfirmation to ourselves and our colleagues that we're constantly aware of safety issues and we're all actively involved in identifying potential problems. There's nothing worse than somebody having an accident and then you're thinking, my goodness, I saw that and I could have perhaps intervened or stopped it from going wrong. So that's the reason why my vision is that every member of the team is actively recording either incidents, near misses, positive interventions on a regular basis, because that's an indication to me of our safety culture being really positive and a learning culture, so that we fully understand the reasons behind things going wrong and we can prevent them in future, Richard. So we really want to get people to record more, and that's our indication to really understand what's not going as well as it could be.
Thank you, Julie. And I guess there's a link, if I can make it to the last question, you know, we're all part of this. So support functions can be part of this by being active in recording these things as well, particularly, you know, when we're out, even as visitors just for the day. So if you see things that might potentially be an incident, don't hesitate to report it. Julie, I'm going to stick with this subject, I think, and ask you about the investigation. So when we do have incidents, or indeed a positive intervention that, you know, potentially could have been a serious incident, what's the level of rigor around our investigation and fixing the root causes? You know, what more can we do to fix root causes to prevent these actual incidents?
Yeah, I think, again, that does build on the last question, and it's very much part of an improved safety culture. And I know that there's always work to be done here, and we're on a health and safety journey. So we're building on learning, we're building on improving that culture. And part of that is our faster turnaround of investigations after incidents have happened, and also investigating, as the person who posed the question is effectively suggesting, investigating maybe not only the actual incidents, but the stuff that may lead to an incident, so that you can prevent incidents from happening and accidents happening in future. So I think there's much more work to do. It's really important to get to the bottom of the actual reason for the accident, because sometimes it's easy to superficially say, oh, well, it was caused by X, when actually, when you really look into it, there is something, or even to sort of blame it as a bit of an act of God. Oh, well, it sort of happened anyway. But I think that what we do understand is that if we'd approach things differently, nearly every accident that happens is preventable. And that's why we really want to understand the root causes. And one of our issues is familiarity, because our network is a lot of us going back and doing similar tasks on a regular basis, and not necessarily seeing those changing circumstances. So for me, it's absolutely crucial that we have that growing safety culture and improved journey to get to the real root cause of the issue, so we can make our canals and workplaces as safe as possible.
Thank you, Julie. Simon, we've got a question about when we're doing remedial work, and I think, again, thinking about this sort of broader risk assessment, the example, I'll try and be brief, is that if we're taking, for example, the water out of a lock as part of the work we're doing, and that may create the risk of a fall from height, because we've now got a lock that's empty rather than a lock with water. How does the public safety issue influence when and how we carry out such remedial work? And is there more that we could do to take such risks into account?
Thank you, Richard. Yes, clearly when planning works, and particularly when the water is removed from a lock, it changes the risk profile of that lock. I mean, clearly, when a lock is empty in normal use, the sill is actually exposed. And so there are inherent risks in our structure day to day. However, when we're planning work, quite clearly we need to think about the various states that the lock or other structures will be in, what the risks are at each of those stages, both to our colleagues and to the public. And then we need to adjust our method to suit those risks. And if necessary, then perimeter fencing, guard railing or other methods should be used to ensure that these risks are effectively managed. But absolutely, before any work starts, we should always undertake the risk assessment, understand the change in circumstance as we develop the project, and make sure that the precautions are taken to protect both public and colleagues. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. That's a really good answer, because, as you say, it's about really having the widest possible view of the risk that we're facing, isn't it? And it isn't just the work itself; it's the consequences of the work. A really important message for us all. Julie, someone's asked about the COVID dynamic risk assessments that we talked of earlier, and are there plans to roll out the use of it to all colleagues and volunteers?
Yeah, so there's only one limitation on the COVID Dynamic Risk Assessment app being accessible to everyone is having an email address, a trust email address. So anybody who doesn't have access, volunteer or colleague who would like access, we can facilitate that by the creation of an email address, and that will give people the login ability to use the app. Yeah. It runs on a GIS platform, so it's available to us if we can just give people those login information.
The next question takes us back, I think, really to home working, or at least part home working. And the question is, in addition to the assessments that were done earlier, the DSE assessments, are there consideration being given to the provision of additional support and equipment? For example, if someone needs to buy an extra piece of furniture to be able to sort of take tidy work away, or if they've got a very weak internet connection and might need some improvement, etc. And we hope to be saying some more about our plans around home working in the next few days. But to answer in brief ahead of that, it's about balance, isn't it? And there's always a difficulty in making that sort of message clear, because we can't, I think, justify having wholesale refurnishing of someone's property for home working. On the other hand, clearly we can't expect you to be able to work at home if it's not comfortable and you haven't got the right space or facilities. So we do want to make sure we're providing whatever you need that we can reasonably support. So I think it all comes down to that kind of conversation with your line manager about your circumstances, about what you specifically need, and how the trust can find a way of reasonably supporting what you need to make it possible for you to continue working in whatever role that you've got. So it's a sort of, again, a partial support for that. We need to make sure we're listening, responding, and being proportionate in what we're able to do. But we certainly do want to make it as comfortable as possible for people to be able to work at home, if that's something that we're going to face doing for, not just the short term, but for at least the medium term as well. I'm going to take the next question is about RIDDORs. Julie, perhaps this is one for you. These are questions coming in, so we're not so prepared on some of these for who's going to take them. Have there been any RIDDORs related to COVID, Julie? Do the number of near misses or positive interventions around COVID indicate that it's likely to happen? What's the position on COVID and the impact it's had on us?
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one, this, because I don't think the HSE have really quite caught up with the concept of COVID-19 and RIDDOR per se. And so as a trust, we are recording the numbers of people who are taking time off, who've fallen ill with the actual virus and are taking time off on a sort of weekly basis. But keeping a running total starts to make very little sense after a while, because various weeks of absence due to COVID overlap. So we have had a number of COVID-related log incident reports, which we've been collating, analysing and reporting to the board, who have been very interested in the impact of this. Does it, in terms of the specific question, is do the level of reports indicate that we might have a RIDDOR? I think it's quite tricky, because of that failure of the link, if you like, by the formal format of a RIDDOR and the unique circumstances of the pandemic. So specifically, no, but I think that's more circumstantial than it is necessarily related to the analysis in a formal way.
I think it's just worth saying, and I don't want to tempt fate by saying this, but I think it's been a sign of how well the organisation has responded. We heard that from Janet earlier, we heard it from Julie earlier, that we've had relatively few cases reported to date. Clearly, we all operate in a society where we will be exposed to that infection, but I think it's credit to the teams out working, particularly with customers in the public realm, who have adapted so well that actually the number of COVID-related illnesses, RIDDORs, etc., has been very, very small relatively. So thank you again for your vigilance in that respect. One more very specific question: how can volunteers access the Log Incident app? Do you need a trust email address?
So this is a bit of good news potentially in the next few months, because we brought in the Log Instant app, and everyone who uses it finds the front end platform extremely useful. What we intend to do though is, because it's not terribly good at the back end in terms of reporting, so I'm working with Steve Dainty, our finance director, and we're going to move into a bit of app development ourselves in the next financial year. And once we've recreated our own version of Log Instant, hopefully it look exactly the same at the front end for everyone who enjoys using it now. It will mean that we'll own the rights to that app, and we can share it much more widely with all colleagues and volunteers in the trust, and even our contractors could use it as well. So that's work in progress and will be coming in the next financial year. In the short term, we can get access for volunteers to use the app. At the moment, a number of volunteer leaders have it. If people are working with us regularly and would like to have access, then we can make arrangements specifically for them. We aren't rolling it out to everyone because there is a cost. So, if you're a keen safety supporter and active in that respect and want to be active on the app, we can make that available, no problem.
Thank you, Julie. We've got 2 more questions. I think we might make these the last 2 because I'm conscious we've answered quite a few. If there are more things you want to ask, please don't hesitate to email them in. I'm going to take them in reverse order because I think the culture one I want to take last. Point of work. We used to talk through the paper version of our risk assessment as a group. And of course, that's harder with an app on your phone. How can we share the sort of work that the M&E team have done more widely with other groups? I think particularly, again, involving maybe some volunteer groups as well, Julie. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, and I think this is all again a part. Darren can't join us now because he pre-recorded his presentation, so he's probably just watching, thinking he'd have a good answer for this if he was able to speak. But working off the hoof, I'd say that the whole area of work on development around dynamic risk assessments and how we share information, the development work that is being led so ably by the My Cascada team as well, is about building that into our future approach. So the COVID dynamic risk assessment will be replaced with the next level of risk assessment. They can still be done on paper. For those who don't have access to an app, it's not a problem. And you could still talk around an app. It's just on a digital format instead. But the stuff that is going on in parts of the trust, we're learning as we develop. And it's great to see people coming up with new ways of making our day-to-day workplace safer. So it's work in progress and constant evolution, Richard.
Yeah, great. And and I think a key point of that question is please do keep pulling. It's so much better for us culturally as an organisation with safety if there are things that you want to have access to, and please do shout out for them. Much better that way than us trying to push things out that people are reluctant to use. So it's a really good sign when people are asking for things. The final question I'm going to perhaps ask Julie and Simon both to give a view about. At the last conference a year ago, Health and Safety Conference, we heard about the Trust's culture maturity model. We had our consultants tribe, if you remember, those of you who were there. Have we relooked at the assessment that we made then? And key question, have we made progress? Are we moving in the right direction? Perhaps Simon to go first, and then Julie on answering perhaps the general question if we haven't got the specific answer on the assessment itself.
No, I think definitely we've moved forward. I think there's been huge advances in terms of communication, people's engagement with the behavioural safety and cultural elements of what we do. I think the number of initiatives and ideas that have come forward, particularly in response to COVID, but in other things, are showing that people are thinking very hard about safety and trying to come up with ideas how to do things better. But much of it focused around, as I say, the behavioural safety end of it, rather than solely process, for which we're renowned. So I would say, yes, we are seeing a difference. It's not easy. It takes time. But I think there is definitely a will and an enthusiasm to improve the culture of the organisation.
And I would build on what Simon said. I think he spoke very eloquently there about our journey. Just to be more specific, though, about our work with Tribe is continuing, and the valuing safety that training that David spoke about in his presentation this morning is the next phase of that work. And what is really pleasing is the Culture Safety Group are really now developing our own approaches to improving our safety culture within the trust. So we haven't redone the survey, because you may remember that the cultural assessment came from a survey from our colleagues and volunteers, and we would need to revisit that. And we do intend to revisit it, but we do feel that the last 8 months has been somewhat diverted from our cultural programme, and that's now continuing, I'm pleased to say.
Thank you both. So we'll end the questions and answers there with thanks again for such a wide range of really good questions. And I hope we've done some justice to them with our answers. And please do keep the conversation going and follow up with anything that we've said that you want to respond to outside of this meeting. We're now going to turn to the announcement of the winner of the 2020 Health and Safety Awards, which I get the very great privilege of announcing now. Julie took you through the 6 shortlisted nominations this morning. And just to recap, because I'm conscious not everyone might have been with us this morning, there were 6 really good examples and illustrative of the diverse range of work that we do. So just to recap briefly, 2 of the nominees were responses really to the COVID impact in our museums. We heard how Chris Doan and the team there had really adopted the COVID secure methodology, all the kind of advice and guidance, and really ensured that the museum and our attractions, Anderton as well, etc., were able to open in a COVID secure way. We also heard how the IT team had worked with the ops support team to develop an app using the Survey 123 platform to enable the dynamic risk assessments to be undertaken, and a tremendously fast turnaround in creating that. We heard about how to enable our volunteers to be inducted safely. Local volunteer leader Sarah had developed a really good presentation that's now been used more widely to help volunteers get on board with our safety messages when they start with us. We heard how the engineering and direct service team responded to the really quite difficult challenge of clearing an inaccessible culvert safely, deploying some innovative thinking and some technology to take out 200 tons of material. We heard how, faced with a very busy canal in the summer, the operations team in London and the South East was able to safely address a failure on a lock gate and keep the lock open under special arrangements so that boats were able to move through it in a very controlled way to deal with the safety issue, but also to maintain some service. And we also heard about culture, about the work in the East Midlands team with the To the Left programme. It's really then spun into the Speak Up, Shape Ups programme that we heard on the video earlier, to really address how we prompt these conversations, how we get more people using Log Incident. We touched on the use of Log Incident a number of times in the questions, and how important it is that we are proactive in the way that we think about the prospect of incidents, the positive interventions we can make before anything occurs. 6 amazing nominations. It's always the worst possible moment when you have to announce the winner, because all of them are well worthy of being the winner. Julie, Simon and I did it together, having met all of the 6 finalists, and we're unanimous in agreeing that the winner should be the one that most addressed these really deep-seated cultural issues for the Trust. And our award goes to the East Midlands team for their To the Left programme, the initiative, and how it's really made an impact on the cultural issues in that team there. So congratulations to everyone in that East Midlands team. And as one does with these award ceremonies, when someone can't be live in the studio, we're going to go live to his home, to Dan Wymans, who's headed up this initiative. And on cue, hopefully, I'm going to invite Dan to react to the news. He's only just found out in the last hour that the team have won this year's Health and Safety Awards 2020. Dan.
Yeah, thanks for that, Richard. Yeah, absolutely amazed. Thrilled to bits for the team, for all the hard work they've put in. And I have to tip my hat to the competition this year, because looking at those other 5 entries, they were all worthy winners as well. You can hear my computer beeping while I'm getting lots of whoop whoop messages come through, which is fantastic.
Now I've had a technical problem again, and I couldn't hear you, Dan. I'm hoping everyone else could, but I can't really react to what you said. But I would just say thanks for being available. Thanks to everyone in the team. Pass on our congratulations to them, but also to all the other nominees, because it was a tremendously strong field, and I'm so proud of the work that everyone has done. With that, I'm going to say thank you from me, and I'm going to hand over to Simon, I think, for some closing remarks to bring the afternoon to an end. Simon.
Thank you, Richard. And I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all our speakers for giving us such an interesting and thought-provoking health and safety conference today, our first in the virtual world. At the conference 12 months ago, we heard about the work done with Tribe on evaluating our safety culture and the actions we had to move us from a process-driven culture to a proactive and learning environment. But as we set out on the challenge of making the change, what a year we've had to test us as we make that transition. We've heard from Lawrence about the major issues and events that have impacted the world and the UK this year, with the most significant for us at the Trust being coronavirus. March seems a long time ago, and the response to the emerging pandemic a distant memory. But Julie has reminded us of the huge amount of work in a very short time that went into dealing with the initial lockdown and then the lifting of restrictions and the return to work in May and June. Interestingly, while the COVID response showed us at our best in developing processes, it also showed us building the safety culture as we increased and extended the use of our mobile and online technology to facilitate the introduction of dynamic risk assessments and the recording of increased numbers of positive interventions on log incident, as we had the welfare of our colleagues at the forefront of our minds. Colleague wellbeing has been a significant element of our COVID response and has enabled enhancements in our communications and care for each other. Sue's presentation on wellbeing illustrated the focus we have had on physical, mental, social and financial wellbeing, and the positive response from colleagues to the support the Trust has been able to give. We've now built great online support tools which give a firm foundation for the future and the future of our wellbeing. It's important at this event to reflect on our safety performance, and David, in sharing our statistics, and particularly those for RIDDORs, reminded us that we're still having injuries to our colleagues and there is much more to do to make us safer. However, on a positive note, our positive safety indicators are improving, and we have an extensive programme of safety culture initiatives and actions to drive improvement. We've heard from Darren, Stuart and Dan about the great initiatives and actions being taken in the operational teams, where the focus on personal and colleague safety has been enhanced with new processes and cultural approaches to assessing risk and operating day to day, with the safety of ourselves and colleagues at the forefront of minds. Finally, it's great to see that the Behavioural Safety Initiative developed, tested and rolled out by the Safety Award-winning team, Dan at the lead there, recognised by the award, was an idea that was born out of the culture work presented at last year's safety conference, when Dan took away ideas and thoughts that were presented by Tribe and in the discussions to come up with this great initiative. More questions have been asked while we've been on air, and they will be answered and posted on Gateway safety pages in due course. So thank you all for joining today, and I trust that you will go away with ideas to improve health, safety and wellbeing in the Trust. And I'd just like to remind you all, please step up, speak out and share ideas. Thank you.